Good afternoon and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's webinar. Today, you're going to start your cybersecurity journey. We're covering CMMC Level 1 Basics. My name is Amanda Anderson. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator, and today I'm joined by one of our fantastic procurement specialists, Frank Luna. He has a 25-year career in government contracting and over 6 years of being an Apex Accelerator procurement specialist. He has a plethora of government contracting experience and certification, so I'm very excited to have him join us for today's event. But before I pass it off to him, I do want to let you know a little bit about the Apex Accelerator program and how we can help you with government contracting. So the Apex Accelerator program is a nationwide network of centers just like ours that are funded by federal, state, and local governments to help you contract with those government agencies. We do that by providing education and training to make sure that you're able to compete at any level of government contracting. And with over 96 Apex Accelerators nationwide, there is absolutely a center near you who can help you really find that success. But what exactly does that help look like? What does Apex Accelerator assistance really mean? Well, at Norcal APEX Accelerator, we're able to offer our services to the 15 Northern California counties that you see on your screen. And we offer our assistance through three main pillars. First, our one-on-one counseling, where you can be paired with a procurement specialist, just like Frank or one of the other fantastic procurement specialists on our team. And they'll sit down with you one-on-one over Zoom, or if you're in the area, we do have in-person counseling available. And they can help you with anything regarding government contract, from helping you determine what agencies are buying your product, doing that initial market research, to helping you get your certifications and registrations in order. Once you're paired with a procurement specialist, they can even help you go through solicitations that you want to bid on and really fine tune that proposal to make sure it is as competitive as you can possibly be. They're a great resource. And one of the other fantastic pillars of services we offer through our counselors is this custom bid matching. Now, what this custom bid matching allows us to do is your counselor will sit down with you to help define criteria that would mean a good solicitation for you. So that could be maybe you can only provide your services or products to a certain geographic location. Yet location can be a criteria in a good proposal. Or maybe you're looking to target specific agencies. That agency can be a good criteria for good solicitation. You can sit down with your procurement specialist and they can help you figure out what really looks like a good solicitation for you. And then they input that criteria into the software, which scrapes federal, state, and local procurement sites for relevant solicitations based on that criteria. And it emails those directly to you for your review, getting opportunities directly into your inbox. And our third and final service pillar is one you're actually taking advantage of right now. We put on a number of webinars and in-person events throughout the year covering topics like today's cybersecurity topic to more introductory topics like marketing and capability statements, to even more complex targets like we're going over teaming and partnership agreements, federal specialized programs like mentor protege programs. And the best part is that all of these trainings, in person and virtual, are always at absolutely no cost to you. Another great resource is our website, where we maintain a ton of government contracting links for federal, state, and even local procurement. So if you have not had a chance to check out our website, I highly recommend you do so. It is a wealth of knowledge and resources that are available to you, regardless of if you're a client with us or not. But if you are looking for more in-depth assistance, more hands-on counseling, you can sign up with us if you're within our service area at apexnorcal.org/join, or you can find your local Apex Accelerator Center if you're not within our service area at apexaccelerators.us. And with that, I am delighted to pass it over to Frank for the content today.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you for the intro to Apex Accelerators. And if you guys don't know us and have not heard of us before, I cannot stress enough the support and the valuable support that Apex does provide to our client base. And so, to Amanda's point, utilize our services. They are no cost to you. And if I would have known early in my career that Apex was available, I probably would have avoided a lot of pitfalls and mistakes in my career. But anyway, without further ado, we're going to get started on our agenda. We're going to cover the basics of what CMMC is. We will cover essential elements for the level 1 compliance. Now we are touching level 1. There are 3 levels, so if you're looking for anything further than that, that will not be in today's course. How to obtain your certification. It is a self-certification, but there are protocols. And the next steps. Our training disclosure, as always, that this information provided herein is as accurate to the best of the presenter's ability at the time of this presentation. Some or all of the provisions mentioned herein could or may have been changed by the current administration with or without prior notice. And we have seen a plethora of changes under the contract rules, federal acquisitions regulations, a lot more changes than I've seen in any other time period in my experience. So next slide. So level 1 basics, CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. So what is it? It is what the DOW, the standard for strengthening cybersecurity for contractors who engage and sell to DOW. It ensures a consistent, robust framework to protect sensitive information. The maturity levels, as I mentioned, are 3. From basic, level 1 that we'll cover today, level 2 advanced, to level 3 is more of a third-party certification. The focus is to protect FCI, Federal Contract Information, and CUI, controlled unclassified information that comes from the government in the form of a contract and the form of executing the scope of work. It is part of a compliance now within the military and the government, the federal sector, that all contractors need some level of CMMC certification to work with the DOW. Next slide. Now, this is the DOW's requirement and the federal government's requirement, but we will see this crossover into other sectors. I'm starting to see the state of California adopt level 1 security protocols. What their impact to businesses is yet to be known. But the timeline, which is good at the speed of government, they have given us enough notice for businesses to prepare. It has been quite a lengthy process, as you can see, since the start of 2020, when the DOW announced the formation of the CMMC accreditation. And throughout the years, they have released different phases. And now we just surpassed phase 1, which is a mandatory phase within the DoD to have CMMC level 1 implemented for contracts within the DOW. Level 2 is slotted for next year, well, this year, November, and that will be a mandatory third-party assessment by what we call C3POs, Certified Third-Party Assessment Organizations, for level 2. And if you're new to the government, acronyms will be your next language. We live in a world of acronyms in the government, and so bear with us as we try and explain what they all mean. The good thing is that you'll get this presentation as a reference guide. And then there's phase four in November of 2028, full implementation for all levels. And in order to bid, contractors will need to comply. Next slide, please. Now, the legal and the regulatory part of this cybersecurity. I tried to put this in as simplified form as possible, but unfortunately, it's a little bit, well, there are reference materials here where you can review. And of course, we are here as a reference to help you understand what the FAR 52204.21 really means. The Federal Acquisitions Regulations, which requires contracts to apply the basic cybersecurity safeguards. And that again to CFI and CUI. Level one is foundational. It does match up with the FAR by implementing 17 basic cyber hygiene practices, which are a subset of what we call the NIST 800-171 Revision 2 controls. And we'll get into what NIST is. As I mentioned, without CMMC Level 1 certification, small business cannot bid on a DOW contract. At this point, it is a self-certification Level 1. But when you do self-certify, you do check a box that you do perjure yourself if any of the information is incorrect. So please ensure that when you self-certify, that it is correct. There are penalties that can be placed on a firm for non-compliance. Level 2 is advanced, and it does require 110 security controls across 14 categories. And then, of course, level 3, as I mentioned, requires third-party assessment, but it does also have a NIST 800-172 requirements for advanced threats. We have time for levels 2 and 3 if companies are moving towards that certification, but yes, they will be in time fully implemented. And next slide, please. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology special publication, is who sets the guidelines for the FCI and CUI in federal contracting. It forms the basics for the CMMC compliance, securing CFI, and it also serves as a foundation for the compliance for CMMC, particularly in addressing the security requirements for safeguarding the information. Now, the CFI and CUI can come in many different forms within a contract. As an example, I've seen a landscaper receive blueprints from a federal installation. That is considered CUI. The landscaper would need level 1 basic security clearances or cybersecurity certifications in order to be granted access to those plans. So they come in different forms depending on your engagement with government. Next slide. So the essential elements, and we'll start with the level 1 compliance. And the more you get into government, it is a lot about compliance and eligibility. Level 1 does focus on the 17 security practices. The level 1 controls for small businesses typically combination of securing your hardware, software, and networking tools that handle and control the access to FCI and CUI. The emphasis here, as it's bolded here, is data access control. So when you're thinking about your infrastructure, all the access points to those files, to that computer system that your company might potentially have. And we'll cover some of those access points. Essentially, the owner of the information is the DOW. The contractors are in charge via these protocols to safeguard the FCI, and CUI. Next slide. So the level one controls for hardware, and this applies to access controls, which is the most in-depth part of the NIST self-assessment protocols. It covers your hardware, desktops, routers, mobile devices, printers, and external devices. They let AC 1.1.001 falls in line with the NIST 871 protocol. So as you're doing the self-assessment, this guide will help you continue to identify and outline what these topics mean. So yes, desktops and laptops for all staff, remote executives need to be secure. Servers, networking equipment, any and all networking equipment, peripherals to include external storage devices, printers and scanners. People don't think that printers and scanners do contain and withhold data. But whenever you scan something or print something, there is a memory that is contained on those devices. Mobile devices, smartphones and tablets, anything that communicates on your network or within your company's infrastructure. Access controls also allow users not only to task that they're authorized for. In other words, you can select users to access certain parts of the contract. Basic controls also check and control connections to outside systems. ASIC controls manages and informs its shared or processes on public systems. As you build we'll get into other security protocols, but as you build your security protocols, the schematic of your network, you have to start thinking about all the access points, whether they're personal devices or devices that are issued by the firm or the company. Next slide. Identification and authentication, the IA part of the protocols, identify users and processes before giving them accesses. Second level authentication is a great application to implement within your organization. It helps satisfy this one protocol. Verify identities again before allowing access via passwords and authentication. Media protection as well. Securely erase and destroy devices like USBs or papers have to be secured and destroyed in order to be compliant. Next slide. Physical protection. Physical protection also applies to facilities. It applies to offices, anybody accessing your infrastructure or your mainframes. Now, for a small business, it could be easier to secure your systems to limit access. As an example, I have a consulting business of one. To secure my business, which is an office, it's a lot easier for me to secure my system through a VPN because I'm only the one allowed in my system. Of course, it depends on the size, the organization, and the complexity of your infrastructure. But these controls for physical protection, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's IT, you do need to track and protect access to your facilities. In some cases, there are required visitors logs. Watch visitors and guide them while they are in your facilities to help control access to FCI. And of course, record retention of who enters and exits your facility must be kept when you're under contract with the DOW. Next slide. System and communication protections. Monitor and secure data sent or received at network boundaries. If you're using third-party providers, your third-party providers needs to have the security protocols. Most large companies, if you're using MS, AWS, Um, those do have the protocols in place. If you're using smaller third-party providers, you do need to ensure that they are compliant. Separate public-facing systems from internal networks, if possible. Systems and information integrity. Find and fix system issues quickly. This is one of the areas that I've seen, one of the pitfalls for many firms is monitoring their updates for antivirus software. Monitoring them, I would put them on a schedule, either monthly, quarterly, where you physically go through the system and update for antivirus updates, patches, anything rather than having your system prompt you. It's a good practice to have those scheduled and update your systems regularly. Keep security software and firmware up to date, as mentioned, and check systems regularly and files for security problems and fix them. These fixes and these protocols do have to be put in writing, and any of these security breaches need to be identified, and these fixes need to be documented as well. Next slide, please. So access controls, you need internal policies to implement who can access what resources based on their role with the contract, their function, and what their position is as well. These privileges granting users and processes only the necessary privileges to access the rights to perform the tasks that they're assigned to, specific to the contract. Now, this is, of course, specific to the scope of work and the contract that is at hand. There is a separation of duties as well. Within a contract, there are individuals that have different roles that might have different security clearances or different solutions to the scope of work. Individuals, if possible, need to be restricted to areas and restrict sensitive data. Privileged access management, implementing controls to limit and monitor access to privileged accounts and systems. Again, the majority is access control and controlling the accessibility of FCI. Next slide. As I mentioned before, there are role-based access controls. There's logical access controls, physical access controls, process-based, and then monitoring and auditing. Again, these have to be documented as how you internally manage all these different internal policies of individuals who access FCI. Once you have the document in place, it does need to be updated on a regular basis as roles change. But once you have the document in place, it is a lot easier to update and keep that document current. Next slide. Control of internal systems access. You will have an IT person for larger firms that will handle a lot of these controls. Smaller firms, it will reside on probably operations to administer authorization rules, separation of duties, physical controls, discretionary access controls, the training, which is critical, that training of employees about the processes, internal processes of how you handle FCI. And also how to identify FCI. What is truly FCI and how to identify that and how your employees handle it. Training is critical in this aspect. Authority chain, IT controls, of course, and audits, regular audits to find fixes and weaknesses within your system. Next slide. Control of FCI transmission. So there is transmission, of course. FCI does get transmitted to other parties for reviews. Sometimes we receive FCI. Apex does have a confidentiality agreement signed with every client. So don't rest assured that your information with us is confidential. but the control and the transmission of FCI has to be controlled as well. Network segmentation, communication controls, flawed remediations again, antivirus and malware updates. Keep those malware software updated as much as possible. Create flow procedures for safe handling and disposing of FCI once the contract is completed and executed. Teach employees again about FCI. Cannot stress that enough, because that's where usually we've seen the breaches occur, is at the employee level. Next slide. And now that you kind of know what to look for as far as your organization and see the complexity depending on the size and scope of your organization and its infrastructure with regards to its systems, now you can begin the level 1 self-certification. To prepare, you must conduct what we call a gap analysis. That, of course, meets up against the NIST 800-171 Revision 2. Revision 2 kind of sets forth of what is missing. It'll identify what gaps are in and what is missing. Meeting the NIST 800-171 requirements standards is critical to qualify for contracts involving FCI. You will be notified within a contract if there is FCI in the initial steps before the contract is actually issued to you. You will have to sign that you have the implemented controls. There is reduced risk. Compliance lowers, of course, the chances of data breaches and penalties under the federal rules. We list a partner of ours as well, Project Spectrum, that conducts a very nice gap analysis and walks clients through the process. If you do need support in helping you navigate through that website, Project Spectrum, we can assist. Highly recommend Project Spectrum to go through the courses. They do have a step-by-step course that one can register and take that will teach you each of these access controls, what FCI is, and how to implement those controls within your organization, as well as a gap analysis. Next slide. Now, the implementation, as I mentioned, there is a document that has to be developed and implemented at each firm that engages with the DOW. It is called the System Security Plans. The SSP requirement is the company's outline of the security requirements and controls in place or plan to meet those requirements. It provides a reasonable overview of the company's security posture, and it's used to assess the organization's security posture and identifies any gaps or weaknesses. It must address and meet the standard requirements as defined below. Next slide. And the scope content contains all these components that need to be kept in writing and need to be kept up to date and current. The scope defines, of course, the systems and networks and the data that's covered, the components within that system, the configurations of the systems, including security settings and access controls, assets that are protected by the system, including the data, systems, and personnel, security controls, document security controls that are in place, including the access controls, authentication, and authorization. Again, the role-based controls. System components, hardware, software, everything that touches the FCI. Control implementations describe how each applicable control is implemented. Boundaries, again, for each system plan, security boundaries. And then responsibility and assignments, roles assigned to individuals who manage and control FCI. Next slide, please. Once you have completed the self-assessment and you have um, a self-assessment that you can say, yes, we meet all the cybersecurity protocols of level one, and you will have to submit your supplier risk system into SPARS, which is the system under PI. SPARS is required firm's cage code when you register. So the cage code is issued by SAM, the System of Award Management. But if you're having this conversation, it means you're probably already registered in SAM. If you do not have a cage code, please contact us and we will help you obtain a cage code. Clients will need to log in into the procurement integrated enterprise PI system and confirm and link their cage codes to their firm. After that, the account application is approved. You will need to log into SPARS and enter your self-assessment score. And it is a perfect score of 15 that is needed. We've listed some resources there for you to begin and review SPARS and the PI site. Next slide. So what's next is connecting with resources to begin to build your knowledge base to implement the CMMC controls within your organization. There's a link here for the DOW resources. Gavology is also a great online training platform that we utilize, and I utilize myself on a regular basis to get updates and help us navigate through all the areas of federal, state, and local procurement. A great resource, and we can help our clients engage with them and also obtain some of the free workshops that they have. We've listed the link to the NIST Gov site, the Institute of Standards and Technology, so you can begin to review the 800-171 protocols. Project Spectrum, again, a great partner to continue your knowledge base on the cybersecurity maturity model certification. That is mandatory for working with the Department of War. Again, these protocols are going to be more intrusive the more you become a government contractor, depending on the complexity of your engagement. They are not going away, and we will see these protocols across all government agencies in time. Next slide. So avoiding the common mistakes that I've seen in my experience is documentation, failing to create or maintain a current SSP. You have to start somewhere, might as well start now. Weak access controls, not limiting access controls to systems and federal contract information with strong passwords, role-based, or physical security, just physical access to the facility. Neglecting updates. As I mentioned, if you can put them on a calendar, update my system once a month. What I have found is updating my system once a month also avoids those hard restart errors that sometimes computers will send you. You have to restart your computer now. And so avoid some of that. So it helps if you keep your systems up to date. Training. Train and educate your employees on cybersecurity policies and protocols. And how to identify the sensitive information that you're tasked to protect. Neglecting to identify FCI. Those are the common pitfalls that I've seen. Is it really FCI? They leave it on the kitchen table, in an office, in a meeting room, and it is FCI. It should be controlled. So neglecting to identify FCI is one of the common mistakes. Next slide. The final advice that we have for you, and yes, we are at the end, create a cybersecurity policy now. Start as soon as possible. Secure the network. Of course, nobody wants breaches. Everybody hates passwords being breached. And you also want to control access. I love role-based access controls that limit accessibility of sensitive information. Of course, plan for contingencies. You need a plan if something happens. Have a fallback plan. Employee training, protect your data. Data encryption is necessary. Update and monitor systems on a regular basis. Watch for suspicious activity and act quickly. And again, everything has to be documented. Even incidents have to be documented because that will show that you have systems in place to identify and correct the necessary breaches. And act now. It is a process. People that are just starting with their cybersecurity protocols find it very time consuming and also cost prohibitive depending on the size of organization. Companies just starting out can take up to a year to implement controls. So get the support that you need. We're here to help and start now. Next slide. We do have, of course, many advisors that can support you in your government business plan and government execution of that plan. I do recommend any of our advisors. We all have a wealth of information. I have the great pleasure of working with a nationwide team where I can call anybody for any question that I cannot answer. So it's great resources. We have contracting officers to professional contract managers, people in the industry that have sold to government for many years that can assist. Next slide.
Absolutely. And that is all we have for our content today. We do have a number of questions and plenty of time to go through them. Before we do get into questions, I would like to ask you all if you did enjoy this content. We always appreciate your feedback, both positive and constructive. If you love this content and really want to see more like this, maybe for level 2 and level 3, I'm going to be dropping our feedback survey link in the chat. So that is where you can let us know that you want to see that. And on the flip side, if you think that you want a little bit more detail or you think we could be doing a different topic that would be really good for your business, this feedback survey is where you can also let us know that. And before we get into our questions, I also want to let you know a little bit about some of our other upcoming events this year. So first off, on January 28th, we will be hosting both CAL FIRE and U.S. Forest Service representatives to go over Wildfire Contracting 101, covering the vendor requirements and the opportunities that are available to you and your business. So if you're looking to get into wildfire contracting and supporting the wildfire relief efforts, particularly in California, we get hit pretty bad. This is going to be a fantastic opportunity for you to ask Forest Service and CAL FIRE representatives your questions directly. And on that note of partnership, we have another fantastic partnership with Caltrans North Region, where we will be participating in their Caltrans Contractors Boot Camp for 2026. And that'll be on February 4th at 10 a.m. But they do have events on February 3rd as well. It is a 4-session event and absolutely fundamental kind of training if you're looking to work with Caltrans this season. But if you're looking to stick to the federal realm, we have a number of events coming up to prepare you to be successful in federal contracting, including our February 11th event is a GSA schedule right for your business. GSA schedules have become a very hot topic in federal contracting, so this is going to be a breakdown of what it is, what it means for your business, and whether it's really something you can take on. And we also have another great federally focused event called Teaming versus Partnerships, Knowing the Risks and Rewards on February 19th, where we'll be covering quite a few different partnership types that you may be looking into as a federal contractor. And if you're looking for any other kind of events, we have our training calendar at apexnorcal.org/trainings. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions. So Marianne was wondering if you know if CMMCs will be required for blanket purchase agreements as well. Have you seen them in BPAs?
It depends on the contract language. If the FAR clause is noted on the contract language, then it is required, even on blanket purchase orders. So the FAR clause that we mentioned is the 52.216. That's for that FAR clause has to be embedded in a document or a contract or a blanket purchase order if that requirement is required. But it is, again, this is only a requirement for the Department of War right now, the federal side.
Yeah. So definitely something I always hear from our counselors is the contract is king. That is what you're beholden to. So if you have any questions about a current BPA you have, definitely check the contract, but it sounds like it's not quite reached that realm yet. And Gina was wondering, do automatic system upgrades need to be documented for cybersecurity purposes as well? For example, you know how Microsoft always pushes out the
Mhm.
updates, especially for Microsoft Defender. Do you need, as a business, to have a log of those auto updates?
Yes, I would definitely put a login of all the updates you have to all your security protocols, even if they're prompted by the software manufacturer. It identifies that when the timestamp within your SSP document that you did update your system. So yes, document it.
Absolutely. And I know it does depend on the software, but sometimes the softwares will log those updates for you. You just have to figure out how to pull that log from the software. So,
Yep.
depending on the
Yep.
system, it may not be too difficult to do.
Yeah, and the previous log is always overwritten, and so it'll always keep the current stamp. So they could say, well, did you do the prior one? And
Mm,
so yeah, it's a good reason to write it down.
absolutely. And Gina was also wondering, does each employee of the organization need to take the training and submit their score to Pi, or is it just one submission per business?
It is one submission per business. Now, the employees, if you do have many employees, I would recommend that you assign role basis or role access based um, authorization within your employees. In other words, letting them know that these employees have certain authority to access certain files. This employee base has liberty to access CUI or CFI.
So, and next question is, what should the small businesses be looking for in the solicitation to determine what requires CMMC certification? I know we mentioned that very briefly earlier,
Yep.
but will
Yes,
the
the
solicitations explicitly state CMMC level one, level two, level three?
Yes, it will state the level of CMMC level required under the FAR clause. So the FAR first thing is look for the FAR clause that we noted on our presentation. And the next thing is to review the level one, level two, or level three. But it will be defined as to what level you have to be certified in order to bid on that opportunity.
Fantastic. And I will say, I want to take a moment. That is something that an Apex Accelerator counselor can absolutely help you decipher. I know that these solicitations can be pages long, really dense, really jargon heavy. So it can be really helpful to sign up with your local Apex Accelerator just to sit down with a counselor and go through it together. Make sure you're not missing anything. Make sure nothing's being misread or misinterpreted. The experience that these procurement specialists that we have nationwide is absolutely phenomenal, and we are here to help you with that.
Yes, to add to the point, do not assume anything within government. Ask the questions. Government has to respond to your questions, and you also have resources.
Fantastic. And then someone was also wondering, can CMMC certification be applied to existing contracts, or is it limited to new contracts only?
It is limited to new contracts and new contract requirements. And so the effective dates, as noted on our presentation, for CMMC Level 1 was November of last year. So contracts before that probably did not have that requirement.
Awesome. And someone was wondering, it sounds like NIST 800-171 Revision 3 was finalized May 2024. Do you know of any impacts that that specific revision has on CMMC Level 1 and 2? Have you heard of that?
I have not heard of level of revision 3 being required for level 2 or level 3 at this point. There's been the supplemental, which is the 800-172 for level 3 that was added, but not a 3.
Awesome. And then we are on the last question. If the audience has any other questions, please do enter them into the Q&A. We still have a little bit of time, so please do feel free, but do note we aren't going to go too deep into the weeds of your questions if they are too specific to your business or too specific to your particular situation. That would be much more fitting to get in with counseling and really get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on with your business, with your situation, and that's the best way that we can kind of advise. So someone was wondering, we had mentioned the FAR clause and looking for the FAR clause in the contracts. If it mentions just the FAR clause but doesn't state a specific level of certification, is it assumed that it would just be level 1 required, or will it specifically state level 1 requirement?
I would not assume. I would ask the question of your point of contact or the contracting officer that states the FAR clause is embedded in this contract and to what level of CMMC is required if it is not spelled out directly.
Fantastic. And this question is a little specific, but I want to bounce it off you, Frank, just in case it is something you're familiar with. Um, are you aware if the DFAR clause 252.204-7012 can also have an effect on CMMC? Are you familiar with that clause, or would that be something better answered in a specific counseling appointment where you can pull that up and really get into it?
That specific FAR clause I would like to pull up, but yes, the DFARS, the Defense Federal Acquisitions Regulations Supplement, yes, it has cybersecurity protocols embedded in there. As to that specific FAR clause, I would need a little further review of that one specific. There's only 52 FAR clauses, but they are pretty lengthy.
And 52 on top of all of the other government contracting knowledge is quite a
Yes,
lot to maintain in one brain.
correct.
All right, well, that is all the questions we have for now. I will give folks another minute or two, but thank you all so much for joining us. Um, as you exit the webinar, if you have no more questions, you will be redirected to our feedback survey. Again, we always appreciate your feedback on these sessions because we truly do put on these trainings to support you and your small business goals. So if we could be doing our trainings differently or a different type of topic for training, this feedback survey is where you can let us know. And if you think this was a great training and you want to see more trainings like this, maybe for level 2 and 3 or other federal topics, this feedback survey is also the place to let us know that. And it looks like another question did come in, so this will be our final question for the day. Um, and this is kind of a loaded question. So, what would you, Frank, as a procurement specialist, recommend is the most economical way to maintain your compliance? Do you think getting a compliance specific consultant would be good, or training up someone on staff?
It is a quite a question, a loaded question, but I would take a look at the self-assessment to gauge what the level of complexity will be for my firm to become compliant. So the self-assessment is a good way to start. Now, I understand that not everybody is tech savvy. So if you do have somebody within your firm that does understand the language the computers speak, I would put them through the self-assessment without any commitments, of course, with any third-party IT companies. An assessment will give you an idea of how much trouble it will be, how much work it'll be if you're not, too much of a tech savvy person. But that's what I would recommend is you do the self-assessment just to give you that initial look of what your internal landscape looks like. Um, and if you're not tech savvy, to have someone that understands the language, take that survey.
Absolutely. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Frank, for this content and this presentation. It is a lot of technical information, but thank you so much for putting it together and for presenting it with me today.
Thank you so much, Amanda. You're great. Amanda, I can't give you enough credit to Amanda. She keeps our team going and our presentations impactful. So thank you. And thank you, everybody, for attending. We're here to help for any follow-up questions.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much for joining us today. With that, I would like to wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you have a great rest of your week as well.
Bye, everybody.